Hey everybody, welcome to Trading Capital. It is Monday, April 25th, kicking off the new week in the markets. We've seen some pretty volatile price action. Today we sold off initially in the morning, making a new low on the charts, and then as to what we expected here at Trading Capital, we completely reversed up and put in a beautiful little bit of a bottoming tail here. Now, do I think this bottoming tail is going to hold much strength over the long term? I don't. I just think it's kind of more of a, since you are into the support here, this triple bottom area, I think, and plus you were oversold after 2 hard days of selling last week. I think the markets are just getting a little reprieve with lower yields, with the announcement that Twitter was officially bought out by Elon Musk for the $54.20 bidding price. So I think that does support the overall, positive bias for the market, since the richest man in the world is now putting a large expenditure inside the market. Even though he's taking the company private, I do think it inherently has a little bit of more risk-off sentiment to the market, since 44 billion was basically is exchanging hands to take Twitter private. So analyzing the S&P 500 here, like I said, we had an initial dump and then it completely reversed with tremendous upside in the late afternoon session. Notice how we were talking about this support line here, which you broke, and then you also had this secondary support line from a previous video that we were watching, which connects pivot low to this pivot low, and again you broke it substantially, but the markets were saved, so it does not set up that confirmation yet that broke this support level. So since you have recaptured those 2 key support levels, there could be some more upside in this market. Where I see potential upside is, I don't think you're going to potentially get through this red bar high. I think that's probably going to be your next resistance point, is right along, let me just get my tool out here, right along these pivot lows. This is kind of where you were chopping, you had a close, another close, another close, a little bit of a close on there, another close before breaking down. So that's going to be your big area of resistance, right where you had this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candle price action of basically closing on the same level before breaking down. And ultimately, I do think you're going to take out this low. After this bounce is complete, I think the next big level is going to be these pivot lows, which it's going to coincide somewhere in and around this range here, this lower range of the channel. So after potentially a small bounce up to this 50-day moving average, I then think you get the next down leg. Now, the next down leg can start a whole lot sooner. Obviously, with the big cap tech starting to report tomorrow, this week is going to be wild for earnings. So realistically, just because we've recaptured this support on a daily basis today does not mean or guarantee that we're going up here. I still think the overall trajectory is a lot lower that the markets have to go. But it's going to hinge on what the big caps report, the likes of Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook. So those are really going to play a key. And obviously, they're going to play even a bigger piece in the Nasdaq. So notice how you came to test this triple bottom. You didn't quite get down there, but after 1, 2, 3 days of hard selling, you've again had a little bit of a reprieve day, where now the potential to keep climbing is somewhat there. It's a little bit of a higher probability that you can start climbing. But again, it's all going to hinge on the fact that what happens with these big cap techs. You have this 50-day moving average bearing down on you, clearly in a downtrend. And then if for some reason you get through that to fill this gap, you're going to have this downsloping trend line acting as major resistance. And I don't think the price action is going to get through that anytime soon. So ultimately, we do think there's more downside in the markets, but you could have a little bit of a float up here over the next, say, 1 to 2 days. If earnings are strong, it could lift the markets up, another, say, 2 to 4% up into that resistance level. Jumping into the Russell, Russell's an interesting chart, the small caps. So notice here on the Russell we have this macro bear flag pattern. And this chart is very, very similar to Bitcoin, which we will touch on after this chart. So this channel is going to be acting as resistance and support. So here you can see it connects your pivot low all the way in January of 2021, a pivot high here, another pivot high here, and then you got your major lows here, which the price action has bounced off of. So notice today that on Friday you actually broke this key parallel channel, closed below it. So today was confirmation day for the Russell because you had really never broken out of this channel on a closing basis. You had some intraday action where you broke the channel, but you never had a closing low like you did on Friday. So this was a key level to watch where we're going to see more downside. And if it confirmed, then the probabilities of the Russell heading lower much faster was very, very likely. But today, the markets were saved. The Russell had a nice big bounce. You can argue that this is a little bit of a bottoming tail. And you recaptured just by closing on the lower range of this parallel channel. Now the question is, will you get some sort of rally to carry you deeper inside the channel, which will give some reprieve to the small cap stocks? Time will tell. Again, earnings are going to be the main factor. If for some reason you do get through that channel, the next big resistance is going to be this downsloping red trend line. But ultimately you have to be aware that the larger trend, the macro trend at bay here, is this bear flag pattern. Okay, so you have your down flagpole here, and all of this is known as bearish consolidation. You're chopping in and around this range, and since the channel is upsloping, there's about a 70 to 80%, if you look back at the patterns, whenever a price action is doing this bearish consolidation and the parallel channel is upsloping, it has roughly a 70 to 80% chance of breaking lower. So we are in the camp that this eventually breaks lower down here, and obviously there's going to be supports along the way that we will clearly be playing, but just be aware that the Russell's on the verge of breaking down, and today we almost had that confirmation candle, but it was saved in the last portion of the day. Jumping to Bitcoin, notice how Bitcoin's price action here, also the bear flag, you have your high here in November to your low here, and all of this is your bearish consolidation. So again, just like the Russell, this favors a breakdown to the downside. It's a lot more probable. However, today, Bitcoin, again, this is a smaller micro bear flag in and amongst the bigger macro bear flag. So whenever you start seeing the micro patterns aligning with the macro patterns, it's never really a good thing for that specific stock or asset class. But once again, Bitcoin on the weekend closed below this trend line, this yellow trend line that was acting as support. You had never had a closing day below this yellow trend line until you hit Sunday and Saturday. Saturday and Sunday you closed below. So Monday was confirmation day again. Were we going to get a close below these two previous candles? It certainly was looking like that until the markets caught a bid and it completely reversed up, and it has now recaptured that yellow key support trend line. So it has negated the potential for confirmation. We do have 3 hours and 18 minutes left. If for some reason Bitcoin got a flush down, which I don't think is likely at this point, then obviously confirmation would still be in effect. But at the present time of this video, the confirmation candle has been neglected. Where do I see potential upside? Well, we shorted Bitcoin at the 42,900 mark. We actually just covered our Bitcoin short at 39,100. So right about here, where am I? Give or take a few. So we just covered our Bitcoin short at 39,100 right before it put in this beautiful bottoming tail. Now the day hasn't been completed, but I do think there's potential upside to get into this orange trend line. We will probably be looking to short Bitcoin again once it starts getting up into this level. And then again, if it goes any higher, we'll be looking at this red bar high here again. And then obviously these same two similar spots where we initially executed a short. So congratulations on that Bitcoin short. It was 1, 2, 3, 4 days of holding the Bitcoin short, and we netted just over 8%, I believe, on the trade. So congratulations. But ultimately, the interesting thing about Bitcoin and the Russell is that you both have this bear flag scenario setting up to a T, with this rising parallel channel that has been your support and resistance lines. So just keep that in mind, that these patterns are aligning, which should dictate that there's significant more downside ahead. And once the next down leg starts, it's going to be furious, because these triple bottom zones on all of the indices are really critical. Once we break that, then there's going to be a whole lot of bulls that change their investment thesis to the bearish side. So just keep that in mind. But that being said, huge week for earnings.